Look at that.
Wow.
Good afternoon. It's Thursday, January 25th, Senate Institutions. We have in here today Steve Howard, Executive Director of Vermont State Police Association. We have Vincent Aluzzi, the lobbyist for that organization, and we have Tracy Casanova, Chair of the Labor Management Committee. There's a presentation that they'd like to give to us today, and Mr. Howard, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know who the chair of this committee was when this annoying thing was added to the table, but we should correct that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm going to be very brief because Tracy is really the expert with over 20 years of experience in DCF, and she's done almost every job in DCF, so she really will tell you. I will just start by saying, and this is the building committee, and so it's an important issue to bring to your attention because it is about physical space in a building. And one of the things I just want to stress to you, and I think you may pick that up from what Tracy offers in her testimony. I think what's baffling for our members in family services is how difficult it has been for us to engage or get a response from those in power in the administration and elsewhere to a situation that is at a crisis level. We are walking on eggshells. We have members calling us saying, we know that another member of our team is going to be killed. We know another member of our team is going to be sexually assaulted. We just don't know when or who. And we are concerned that that message is not resonating with those folks who have the ability to muster resources in a crisis. This is a crisis, and we are in very serious, a dangerous place, not just for our staff, but also for the kids that they're trying to take care of. We are not doing, you'll hear from Tracy, we are not doing the right thing by these kids. And I think that's, I think Vermonters would be very sad to hear that. And so what I would urge this committee to do is to really engage Buildings and General Services and DCF's leadership in looking at what space is available in state government and how fast could that space be opened up for beds, not just for those who are justice involved, but for those kids who are suffering from mental illness, those kids who are suffering from developmental disabilities. Because a lot of people think, oh, this is just about Woodside and justice involved use. It's not just justice involved use. So I'll leave you with that. The last thing I would just say, this is, I think the folks in this room were not here. Maybe you were here when the mental health system, no one was here when Irene occurred.
No.
At that point, when Irene occurred, our members came forward and said, we need a much more robust state hospital. We need 53 beds. The legislature, the governor at the time, was Governor Scott, Governor Shumlin, chose not to pay any attention to what our members on the front lines had to say. And our point was build more capacity than you may need, because you never know. You want to have more and not use it rather than have less and need it. What resulted in the aftermath of that is what we all know is still going on today with our constituents, your constituents, our neighbors in emergency rooms piled up because there are no mental health beds for you. Same thing is true with the closure of Woodside. Our members knew that the management of Woodside was failing and needed to be changed, that the building needed to be softened, that there needed to be better oversight of that, independent oversight of that facility. But we strongly recommended that they renovate the building, hire new staff, hire new management staff, and change the policies and change the approach and not try to cite a new facility. Because what happens when you try to cite a new facility, what we see in Newbury, what we see is happening all over. And so what do we have? We have kids who are currently sitting with DCF caseworkers in the basement of the Newport Police Station, because by the mercy of God, the Newport Police Station is one of the police departments that will still help DCF. sleeping on air mattresses in a basement of a police station, sitting in waiting rooms at a hospital. It's just not acceptable. And so I just wanted to lay the groundwork there, and when this issue comes up again, when another issue comes up like this, I hope you'll listen to what the frontline employees will say about capacity. Because that is certainly in your jurisdiction. And it is, has proven now, unfortunately, in a couple of instances, to have put a lot of our neighbors in harm's way unnecessarily. So with that, I'm happy to take your questions, but I'd much prefer to turn it over to Tracy, who can tell you what's really
I
happening.
think it's a good lead off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I apologize, I'm gonna leave at 1:30 to go across the hall, but I'll leave you with Vince's hand, so if you have any complaints, just text me.
Well, Vince said you were going to get pizza. I don't know. I guess maybe that's not true.
I'll do anything you need.
Good
Welcome,
afternoon.
Tracy. How are you?
Very good, thank you for having me.
And just for your name of the just for the record,
Tracy Casanova, I work for the Vermont Department for Children and Families, Family Services Division. And my role there is I'm the Deputy Compact Administrator for the Interstate Compact on the Placement of Children and on the Compact on Juveniles, and I'm the Human Trafficking Consultant for the division. So, but I'm here today in my role as Labor Management. I'm the Chair of the Labor Management Committee. I've been working for DCF for 21 years. I just hit my 21st anniversary a couple Saturdays ago. Thank you. And so just to give you a little bit of my history with the department is that for the first 13 years of my career at DCF, I worked as a family services worker in the St. Albans District Office as a juvenile services worker, child protection worker. And then my last probably 5 or 6 years there, I was an investigator doing investigations and assessments, and I was co-located at the Northwest Union for Special Investigations. So since then, I've been in central office for the last 7 years in those roles. So I really want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I really appreciate your interest and willingness to hear me out and what our workers are experiencing right now. So the state of Vermont's science system of care is in a crisis and is in a state of emergency, and we're in need of an immediate intervention. This intervention needs to include a building that is run by a program, not by DCF staff, where kids can be physically placed, that is a safe environment for them, that's safe for the community and safe for staff. The system of care includes, when I'm talking about that acronym, includes placements in foster homes with parents, therapeutic foster care, short-term stabilization programs such as the SEAL programs in Bennington, residential treatment programs, psychiatric hospitals, and secure crisis stabilization programs. The secure crisis stabilization program I'm talking about needs to be large enough in order so that there's enough room. I know that there's a worry about if we build it, we'll fill it. And I understand that, because I can say I've been doing this work for 21 years, and none of us want to lock kids up and put them there when that's not what's needed. But when you're factoring in numbers, you need to take into consideration for the populations that would be served there aren't just kids that would fall under DCF or Justice Involved DCF. It would also include kids who are under DOC supervision, who cannot be in an adult facility, who should be in a juvenile facility. And it also includes the out-of-state youth so in one of my hats, the Interstate Compact and Juveniles, that compact is responsible for the return of out-of-state runaways. And there are times where we have to detain out-of-state youth, and we're required to be putting them in a secure placement that we do not currently have. And so those are the numbers that need to be taken into consideration to have capacity to include all three of these different populations. So I think that we would need a minimum of 10 beds, I think, to be on the safe side when you're just in terms of thinking about how big to be looking at. And we need this intervention now. We really can't continue to wait for a secure facility. When I was first here a couple weeks ago testifying in this matter, we had just had two youth who seriously, they're 14 years old, they're in one of our programs, and they seriously assaulted another juvenile in 12 seconds. In 12 seconds, They significantly assaulted another juvenile that then requires hospitalization. When you think about that, that was in a place with people who are trained, and they responded immediately. They did an amazing job of intervening and trying to pulling everybody apart and keeping everybody safe. That kid can no longer be there, so he's now being staffed by our staff and law enforcement, and we are not trained. We are not residential program staff. We are not trained to be managing these kinds of situations. It's not safe for us, it's not safe for the kids, and it's not safe for the community. This lack of secure facility has had a ripple effect among our community, and it has become a lot more common for the occurrence of kids who are being charged with Big 12 offenses, that they're subsequently being incarcerated. And in the last 6 months, we've had numerous youth who've engaged in crimes that involve violence and the use of firearms. Due to our lack of secure placements and the risk they pose to our staff, we've been releasing them back into the communities. Okay, that's not safe for the communities. The communities and they're being placed in their communities with their families. That's placing the community and families at risk of harm when these decisions have to be made. This ripple effect includes the judiciary. They are being put in positions that they shouldn't have to be put into because there are no good options available. They're having to make decisions to place kids back at home with family members who aren't suitable or not appropriate and not safe at times because there is no other available option to place those kids with because of our lack of capacity for any beds. Judges are having to place kids in jail and incarcerate them and hold them without bail because the risk they pose to the community is so significant. And again, like that, there's a reason why we don't put kids in, want to incarcerate kids, put them in adult facilities. They're not getting their treatment needs met. And we are a state that values rehabilitation of our youth. That is not what we are doing. And as a system, we are failing the kids, we are failing our staff, and we are failing our communities. And this is not, DCF has come under a lot of criticism and it's pointed that the failure is on us. And I'm really feeling the need to push back on like, this is a failure of the community in the state because this is a state of Vermont problem, not just a DCF problem, because these are children and families of the state of Vermont that one entity should not be fully responsible for, that we are all members of this community and all responsible for coming up with a solution for this problem together. In the last year, we have seen a higher prevalence of gang activity amongst our youth, where they're making videos talking about killing each other. We've seen young kids who are dying and they're being shot as a result of homicide and some of these gang rivalries. And we have been really fortunate that there hasn't been more. You just turn on the news and you'll see all of these acts of violence, and they're being committed by kids who are younger and younger than we previously seen. We've been really lucky that we haven't seen an increase in these of these deaths or any other acts of violence because we really have no place to put any of these kids when these things happen. Due to our lack of resources within the state, we are continuing to have to resort to staff these high-end system of care youth with DCF, contracted agencies, law enforcement, and a variety of settings. Since staffing kids, in the past, this used to be a rare occurrence where we would need to staff a kid every once in a while, and now it's a regular occurrence. On December 19, 2023, Deputy Commissioner Radke sent a message to division staff with a call to action where she stated that DCF on average was staffing 5 youth or children per day. These 5 children a day include justice-involved children and other children who are in DCF custody as a result of abuse or neglect. So I want to share some data now because I think the numbers are very compelling when you hear about how the trends have been going. So in 2023, we staffed 129. There were 129 staffings that took a minimum of 10 hours, and they usually were overnight. So when you think about that, that is in addition to somebody's 40 hours a week that they are working, that they are then volunteering to go and work additional hours to staff a kid, and then come back the next day and do their regular job on top of that. Okay, of those 129 kids that we were staffing, 11 of those were kids who were either on the autism spectrum disorder spectrum or had developmental delays because there were no community placements available to them. And the other agencies did not have capacity in order to wrap up. In 2022, there were 63 staffings. In 2021, we had 30. In 2020, we had 15. In 2019, we had 8 staffings, and of those, they were usually for only one night while we were waiting to get transport to either a secure facility or to the Brattleboro retreat. In 2018 and earlier, we weren't counting or keeping track of the numbers, but on average, we were staffing between 7 to 10 kids a day. And again, those are usually as a result waiting to get transportation. Currently, when we're thinking about just the workload and the capacity and the drain on our system, what's the impact that it's having is that, so you might have one youth and we're staffing that with 2 DCF staff and law enforcement. If we can't get law enforcement, then we are then supplementing to have 3 DCF staff along with the youth. There's this idea that adding a third staff increases safety and that you're reducing risk and danger. We are not a substitute for law enforcement. Okay. And so that is not true safety. That's not truly reducing risk. We are staffing kids between the ages of 6 years old, the youngest child that we have staffed, up until almost somebody's 18th birthday. Many of these staffings occur with the support of law enforcement, but I will say during the summer months, it is almost impossible to get law enforcement support as a result of the sheriff's contracts during the summertime and their other obligations. In terms of the length of time, they can go from 1 day to the longest was 3 weeks. And again, these are 24-hour staffings on top of workloads. Those kids aren't getting any treatment, they're not getting education, they're not getting socialization, and our workers are great. They're really engaging kids, but there's a rotating door of our staff, which is not good. With different expectations, every time there's a different shift in staff, a change and shift of staffing with different expectations. Okay, and that's really hard for kids when you keep on almost changing the rules a little bit for them. So this is not good for them. It's making it worse, staffing these kids, especially for extended periods of time. So some of the behaviors that we're seeing from kids that we're being asked to staff include violence, aggression, gang affiliation, sexualized behavior, destruction of property, personal care needs, medications, mental health diagnosis, kids with significant medical needs, kids who qualify for developmental services or who are on the autism spectrum, kids who need a higher level of personal care to include toileting and hygiene. This is an increase in the number of staffings is not as a result of the number of kids in DCF custody. In fact, the number of kids in DCF custody continues to trend down. And I will provide you guys with a copy of my testimony that'll have a graph that will show you the change in terms of the number of kids in DCF custody and how those trends have been changing over time. So this when we staff kids, it has an impact on them, as I mentioned. It also impacts our staff. We can't keep staff. We are burning through people because they are exhausted, they are traumatized. A few months ago, I heard that on average, we were losing about 5 staff a month, which is pretty significant. So you think about that in terms of it takes about 2 years on average to learn how to do our jobs at DCF Family Services because we are an extremely complicated system. And when we keep on turning that over, people aren't staying, that means a lot of the responsibilities are falling onto the more seasoned workers and it increases their workloads as well. It makes it really hard to sell to people to come work for us. There was a period of time I loved my job and I loved the department that I was working for. And I can say right now, it'd be really hard for me to encourage somebody to come work for us right now based on what's happening, which breaks my heart because we have an opportunity. So there was a period of time where we really had an opportunity to do good and to impact somebody's life in their worst moment in their life and really have an opportunity to provide them with services and support to help keep their kids safe and get them the help that they needed. And I can say like, we're not able to really even do that anymore right now. This is also having an impact on our community partners. We need law enforcement, we need hospitals, we need all of our providers, and they are done. Like, they have had enough of us, and they think that they don't understand why we have not come up with a solution and why we need to continue to lean into them. Okay, and so we have police departments who were previously very engaged with us, willing to work with us. They have said no more, we can't continue to do this anymore. And this is on UDCF. And it's, and I get it, I absolutely understand, and we need them. We cannot do this without them. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you some of the examples of the profiles of kids that our staff have been expected to sit with. So we've had a 17-year-old male who had probable cause to be charged with first-degree aggravated domestic assault by chasing a family member with a butter knife and threatening to kill them. 14-year-old male who identified as part of being a gang. The charges included reckless endangerment, grand larceny, and stolen vehicle. They assaulted staff, pushed and slapped and punched the face of the staff while another youth held that staff down. 15-year-old male entered custody after an incident with a firearm that resulted in a shooting. This youth was in possession of the handgun at the time of the shooting. 14-year-old male stole a car, was physically aggressive to caregivers. 16-year-old attempted to take control of a vehicle, his provider, and assaulted them and caused the damage to the car. A month later, the same juvenile made threats to kill his family members with a hammer. 16-year-old male charged with aggravated assault, simple assault, disorderly conduct, and false public alarms. 13-year-old male running away, selling drugs, coercing female peers into sex acts, physical assault to parents and other females. 11-year-old charged with arson, unlawful mischief, reckless endangerment. Female sliced a family relative with a box cutter and then punched them in the head multiple times. Female charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and reckless endangerment. Foster parent found bottles of gasoline and lighters in a youth's room. The youth had reported wanting to make Molotov cocktails to throw at his family relatives. Damaged a state car that a worker was in and smashed the windshield as the worker was driving away. Youth who stabbed their caregiver, caused 2 black eyes, and threatened to kill other family members. And another youth was charged with aggravated assault, tased 3 people and injured 1, had other assaultive behavior and sexual acting out. So there's other kids with different behaviors, but I pulled these out because these are all kids that would have been eligible to go to Woodside had we had a secure crisis stabilization program. Okay, so tell you that we still have this need, okay, that we have justice involved youth who do need a place. We have kids also who do not have any delinquencies who need that. We need, it's not just one place that's gonna fix this problem.
It also sounds like that maybe we shouldn't be having policies to have kids that are juveniles up to 22 years old neither, right?
So philosophically, I think that it's important to go with the research around brain development. I think right now we need to hit the pause button because we're not ready to do that.
I'd have to argue with that as far as brain development, at times where you just have this bad behavior as acting very much like adults and causing dangerous harm to the community. And so, I just, violent, I get that. I know that you probably have a lot more and I want you to get to where you want to get to. And we've allowed you the time in the committee to describe some of the dangers that you're putting up with, which we do feel about that. We do understand that there's a need for a building, but to be honest with you, this committee isn't about policy. We hear you, I'm gonna let you continue on, but if you could, at some point in time, if you have a part of the presentation that you could tell us about the needs of a building, besides, the amount of harm that you guys are facing, which we do very, very much understand. But I'll let you continue, but if you got a building section of it as well, we'd like to hear that.
I only have a few more minutes and then I'll address some of the things that you were asking about. So while standing up a secure crisis stabilization program is not going to solve all of our problems, it will reduce some of the pressures to our system. We know that there seems to be a rise in youth committing violent crimes, and there's a significant increase in the number of youth coming into Vermont for the purposes of dealing drugs and who are gang involved in other states. We continue to see trends of youth being brought into Vermont by drug traffickers to have their youth run drugs here in Vermont, as it's well known that we do not have a place to hold kids securely. These situations could also be considered labor trafficking of minors. The continued staffing of these youth is also making them worse and more difficult to place in therapeutic settings. The bottom line is that our system is in crisis, our children, our youth, and our staff and our communities at risk. Everyone has been saying that something bad is on the verge of happening and that we are on borrowed time. Bad things have already happened. Okay, we had a staff member murdered, sexually assaulted, and our staff continue to be assaulted in all these different settings. We need, so my question is, what else needs to happen before action happens? Woodside closed. At the time that Woodside was closed, our workers and our staff were promised that we would have another building in place and set up in order to have this population, their needs met. We have been waiting for 4 years now to have a replacement for this, and we are in no better place than we were back then. And we really need your help before we have another tragedy on our hands. When I think about buildings, that it's not just a secure stabilization program to look at justice-involved youth. We need buildings that can also house kids with developmental needs. That, as I said in my presentation, we have seen a rise in the need to place kids who have developmental needs, who would qualify, who might be on developmental waivers, and would qualify under Dale services, but there's no place for those kids to go. Those are some of the 6-year-olds that we're staffing they need help toileting, bathing, dressing, eating, and those kinds of things. And so we need a place that can meet those kids' needs because we don't have anything at this time. We need placements and buildings for kids who have significant mental health issues. These kids they have a lot of adverse childhood experiences. And when you hit adolescence, it's a complicated time in everybody's life. But when you add these other things in, sometimes it's harder for some of these youth and they need additional support. And we need places and buildings for them to receive treatment and adequate treatment and education, none of which is happening for any of them right now for the kids that we are staffing. And they're homeless. To say that kids who are in foster care are homeless is a terrible thing to say as a state, that we have this number of kids who we have no place to put them.
I will agree with you on the sizing of the buildings, and I think that we need your help, your guys' help as much as anything. I don't believe, and I'm not gonna speak for my committee, but I've seen my committee nod their heads on other parts of testimony last year. We haven't got much into it this year. We're actually gonna get into it tomorrow. We've seen this program up in Maine work very, very well. And one of the things that they were very much against was that you really couldn't make the building too big. Because it allowed more opportunity for programming, and just because that you made it too big didn't mean that that you're going to fill it up. In fact, they took the opportunity to actually reward people for maybe not, instead of 2 people to 1 cell, 1 person, 1 on 1 cell, and they use that as a reward mechanism to allow reward better behavior and encourage better behavior. And my fear, myself, I'm sure my committee's gonna have some more to say about it. I feel that that the way the push in this building is right now, from what we're hearing early on, is that we are fighting over size of it. And they're always trying to get it to a bed count, to a bed count, to a bed count. And my preference is we build it as big as we can build it. Again, to make sure that we first don't right from the start, undersize it to make it fail right from the beginning. And then we're back in these situations, these harmful situations that you're putting you guys in danger. Doing nothing good, rehabilitative, to any of the population, whether it's kids or adults or, in betweens. So we need your guys' help. We need your guys' help to push for the size of these buildings to make sure that they're not undersized right from the begin with, so that we're handicapped on the day that it opens. But committee, there's a lot going on here. Does anybody want to make any comments while we're going here?
Or just some questions, yeah, I mean, so it was 4 years ago that Woodside was closed, and how many beds were there?
It was a 30-bed program.
So, but now you're saying 10 would be sufficient?
So the way that Woodside was structured, there was a short-term and a long-term
Okay.
treatment program. So what we're talking about is the short-term crisis stabilization versus long-term treatment.
So, is there long-term treatment now? I don't, I think the retreat is doing something new recently with kids. But I don't,
I believe that they are gonna be working on building a program, but that is at the very beginning stages of it. So basically, right now, what happens is that we are very fortunate in the state of Vermont that we have this amazing unit called Specialized Services Team, and that they work looking across the United States and in Vermont for programs to meet the needs of our kids. So we always try first to match kids with programs here in the state of Vermont, and if we are unable to do that for treatment purposes, then we will look across the United States, and we have a worker who is probably on a plane every single week, traveling to see our kids in residential programs and also looking for programs that would take some of our youth who have specialized needs that can't be served in the state of Vermont. And then so that is what we are doing right now, is that we don't have a place to do the short-term stabilization. And part of with the staffing and they're getting worse, then it's much harder to find programs who are willing to accept them because their level of aggression and violence is more than a lot of programs are willing to or have the capacity to manage. And so, that is the feedback that I've been getting. It's been really hard to find programs to be able to do that, that are willing to take that. So right now, we could stabilize people with treatment, kids with some treatment, and have the opportunity, then they might be more available to be able to access treatment, and more programs would be willing to take some of these youth on.
okay, and so it's a crisis facility. Is what
Crisis
you want,
stabilization.
10, okay, and then, when you use law enforcement, or when you ask for law enforcement, is that sheriffs, and it sounds like it's local police too? Do state police ever help you?
If we're at the barracks, So the staffing is with the sheriff's departments that we're calling. The Moyle Sheriff's has been great to work with, as well as Sheriff Anderson, who's also been fantastic, and also letting us use part of this building in Brattleboro with Rest Stop, letting us create Rest Stop up there. The issue really is, so they're the primary ones that are, when we're calling, looking for staffing support for law enforcement, is the sheriff's departments that we're contacting.
Okay.
If we happen to be stuck at a police department, we are generally being kindly asked to move ourselves to the lobby.
And then just what is DCF's plan for this? Is there an official plan?
I think that would be a really great question for our leaders, to be perfectly frank. So it's the question that we, as the chair of labor management, I've been asking, and what's the
But you must have a plan.
me?
Yeah, I mean, you guys, DCF has a plan, right? What's your plan?
The
It is a
department.
fair question.
The department, from the information that's been provided to us, is that we are working on developing contracts with providers. We're working on building up Rest Stop. We are working on having Middlesex be a temporary short-term program that it's my understanding that the construction is supposed to be complete by the end of this month. And we are in the process of developing a contract with a provider who would run it, but that contract is not up and running just quite yet. So the building might be ready, but we won't have anybody to run it by the time it's open.
Is that building 10 units, or does that building?
It's four beds,
Four.
my understanding,
Okay.
at Middlesex.
Okay,
And then we are working to build a permanent facility that would be larger. But it's my understanding that that's more of like a 5-year plan or longer in terms of that, and that we're working with the retreat to create a PRTF, a psychiatric treatment facility for kids who have more acute psychiatric needs. Because right now, kids who need that level of treatment, we have to send them out of state.
Yeah, and I have heard that from my constituents. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So do you have an idea of where this facility might be? Are we building something from the ground up, or are there buildings available that we could rehab? Or you mentioned Middlesex, and I remember taking testimony, I think last year, that we were gonna put 4 beds up to help the situation, but where's the ideal place in your view?
Honestly, something that's a little more centralized or in the northern part of the state. Every part of the state is experiencing youth who need this type of placement. But when you have, our largest county is Chittenden County, our second largest county for staff is Franklin County, and then our third is Rutland. And so when you think of like the 2 out of the 3 largest district offices in the state are in the northern half of the state, but everything that we have to like our staff secure program, everything's down south. So the SEAL programs, Vermont School for Girls, all, everything is in the southern tier of the state. So if there was something that was even close up, a little more centralized or northern part of the state, or even open 2 smaller places on each end, I believe the state of Maine is, they are looking to close down their Long Creek, their detention facility, and that they were gonna be looking to open up 2 different smaller programs within their state. So it's hard for families to be able to engage in treatment or even see their kids and families when it's so far away. And again, like I'm very fortunate that we are a state who really values family time, and we will pay to have, to be able to transport families to come see their kids. That's still really hard for them to do that. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Just one other, do you ever send kids to Maine? Is the Maine, just whatever treatment, they might have in Maine? Like, is there anything in Maine?
There is a there's a drug treatment program that we don't contract with, but private insurance of kids. So in my role as the deputy compact administrator for ICPC, I'm responsible for all kids moving across state lines for one of the parts for residential. So we have sent a couple kids to a drug rehab in Maine before, but that was a family that was using their private insurance to pay for that.
Okay, some of those rehab programs, I understand the time frame is sometimes pretty short, like 2 weeks. And that's not enough time, is what I understand.
No,
So
no.
is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. We have 0 residential treatment programs in the state of Vermont for adolescents. There's no,
For drugs
for drug and alcohol, there's no residential level of drug treatment for adolescents in the state of Vermont. So if youth needs residential level care for substance abuse disorder, they have to go out of state because there's nothing here in the state of Vermont.
Was there ever something in the state?
Yeah, we used to have Valley Vista that used to take youth.
Okay.
It was another.
And what happened to them?
They are still open, but they no longer take kids. They no longer, they will only take 18 and up. If there's a youth who's like gonna be turning 18 very, very soon, we have sometimes been able to get an exception through Dale, because Dale who licenses Valley Vista to be able to have them there, but that is a really difficult process to be able to overcome.
And is that longer than 2 weeks, that program? Or
It's been a
is
long,
it effective?
you have to, I think that's a longer conversation
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of, is it effective? If you're ready to
Yeah,
engage in treatment, and part of substance abuse treatment is relapse as part recovery.
mhm,
And sometimes people have to relapse and return numerous times before they're ready to make the changes and be sober.
right, but some programs are really in it for the insurance and pop people out. when they're not ready, is my.
I think there's different
But I
treatment
don't-
models. I know the state of Florida has some, for adults, rehab programs that are much longer that seem to be more effective.
Okay. Okay.
What's the, I think I probably know this, but, what's the closest thing that we have to having anything, as far as a facility for a treatment center? Is it Newberry? Is that as close as where we're at with, anything?
I don't know the status of Newbury as to what's happening. It's my understanding that I think the town is still gonna appeal the Supreme Court's decision. And that we needed to go back and talk to, we don't own that building.
Right.
So Beckett owns that building, so we need to go back and talk to them. I know that there was conversations thinking about what we were gonna, if they still wanted to work with us on this, and if so, what population could that serve? Would it? Since our needs are shifting a little bit right now with the youth, the kids who have developed a lot of developmental needs. And on the autism spectrum disorder, so, but those are conversations that certainly like are at the beginning stages because this decision just recently came out.
So there's a push, we have one going in Newport and there's another one that's going on, I should know, I just can't remember, maybe there's one in Essex that's going on for, a little bit of the, mental health, just going in there and be able to talk to somebody. The one facility that we advocated for and got funding for in the legislature in Newport is not an overnight, at least not at this point in time. Are any of those type of facilities gonna be a benefit for you, or is that, or maybe you're not aware of them?
I'm not aware of them. I would need more information about them to be able to answer that.
What else? I think that, again, you make a very compelling case and I have no doubt, what you've laid out is just exactly the way it is. I think that, I think the frustrations with me, again, I don't want to speak for my committee, they'll speak for themselves. That there is some frustrations. I know I'm on my 4th year here and we've been talking about this for 4 years. Unfortunately, I get frustrated with the pace of government when it starts to impact people's lives, especially youth. So I do feel for you. I will challenge, Mr. Howard, Mr. Luzzi and yourself as well to, put as much pressure on the, not just the administration, but the, other people in the parties that, because size does matter in these facilities, and I think that especially, Mr. Howard, I think that, you're in the business to have state employees, and I think, anything that's built too small is gonna be less staffed by, our capable Vermont workers. And, I'd love to see you, and like you do, put some pressures on them to find a right size building that will work for everybody. We're certainly gonna be tickled right to death, in this committee to, be part of the process of making sure that, we keep it maintained and all of that, but, other than that, other than I do feel for you. I do. I feel for all the struggles that you guys are doing, all the people that you're talking about, that are, at danger are my neighbors. They're my friends. I know a lot of them. I do. And, yeah, I do feel for you. I wish that we could get there quicker. I don't think that we're the committee to do that. We're all senators and we all have our own votes on stuff as legislation moves forward. But I think that's, a lot of the troubles that you're facing are probably outside of this committee and probably each of the individuals of ourselves. But, we certainly will do all our parts to help alleviate, with what you guys are going through, and not only so much as you, but the youth, I think that's getting left behind during this pandemic. The youth that got left behind during the lockdowns, all of that, and the ones that, have really suffered through this time. I wish we could make the clock move faster and get more buildings built. And I know my committee really, really well, and I can tell you that if we could do anything to make that process quicker and supply those beds, I think we'd do it tomorrow. But, other than that, I appreciate you coming in tremendously. And, anything else to me? Mr. Howard, anything you want to add, sir?
Nope, thank you very much for your time, we appreciate it.
Yeah, Vince, anything you'd like to add?
We have done the best we can. Thanks for the opportunity. We've done the best we can to bring this to the attention of folks. Our leverage is not as powerful as yours, and we'd ask that you ask the commissioner of DCF and maybe the secretary to come in and give you an update on where we are in this 4-year journey.
Yep.
I think it's a fair question. for
I think
you
it's
folks to
just,
ask.
I think it's a very fair question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you for your work.
I may be back for the women's facility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have your chair right over here. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good, good, good.
I'm here from Middlebury College today, so I'm just popping around.
Make yourself right at home. We got some other folks coming in and we're gonna talk to some folks from Bennington. Yeah, so sorry to cut it off short, but it was kind of going round and round and
Well, yeah, it's hard not to want to engage in terms of policy, but we don't really, that isn't our job, so.
Right, we're getting a building built.
Yeah, but then to get into the sort of
well,
staffing issues and I mean, we don't, that's not our.
I think what I really wanted, and the reason why I agreed to have him come in here, because I wanted the committee to understand that there's a big push in this building to build it smaller. And again, I take a lot of cues from you two, because you've been to that facility in Maine. And you've heard a lot, and I've watched you guys as we've learned, as we've gathered information about, you can't undersize something. I mean, I know as far as in real estate, you can undersize something, and just because you build it too big, doesn't mean that is. I just don't think that the way that we're going in this state, that you could build something 10 times the size of what you need. It doesn't mean the way the politics are working in the state, it doesn't mean that we're gonna fill it up with bad people, man. I just don't think the political will is in that way. I think it's to charge people with less, to not to incarcerate them, to find different ways to do that. But I hear over and over and over, the two things I heard on that main facility, and I know it's a women's facility, the two things I heard on that facility over and over and over, you can't build it too big. And you gotta build it close to, so I was glad we asked the Congress, where's the right place for that building? You gotta build it to where there's civilization, transportation and services and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So that's kind of why I wanted them to come in here.
Yeah.
For us to be advocates for, if we do have a say in the size of what the building is. No, we don't want it, cause I don't want a building big enough so we can house more people. I agree that, there are better alternatives, but, the public does have a right to be safe. And there is the amount of risk, as we heard. And those people, and a human nature, shouldn't be housed in a basement of a police station or anywhere else. For a public safety, they shouldn't be housed there. There's the right place for them at the right time, and if we get a chance to get one of these buildings built quicker, I have no doubt that we'd probably make that decision. But I want you to hear the needs and that there are real needs, because I think the thing, and I was gonna ask her, but I'll ask you guys how you felt about it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Wendy, because you asked the question, was how many beds did they really need? She said 10. Well, we came out of 30, and she named off at least 10 people that were like really dangerous. So I don't see how they could get away with 10.
Yeah.
Because there are some kids that need to be not locked up, helped and protected. And they weren't as bad as those folks. So if you had 10 of them that were really, really bad, you've got to probably, I can only assume, because we probably have 40 others that just need help.
Yeah.
So, I was
Right.
surprised, I was surprised at the number of 10, I guess.
I think her list was over time.
Yeah.
Like over many months or maybe a year
Yeah.
of time. So,
I don't
and,
think the
and these are short term.
Yeah,
I don't think the mental health trajectory in this country or in Vermont is showing us that we're finding a way to help these people such that that population is gonna decrease anytime soon.
right.
And that's my concern, that we will go too small.
Which is, I wanna help those folks. But if if you've got 50 people. And they all gonna cram into this room. What have you done to help them? I don't see, it's just, sometimes people just need space. Sometimes people just need a place to be able to go and just get away from something.
Right,
And be able to go there and then stop the noise.
right.
And so if you bring all those 50 people into this one room.
Yeah,
And you
I-
think you're helping them, you're
Well,
not.
and that's why we actually should know more about what they do, because there's also other ways, like restorative justice programs, where you talk about what you did and find ways for the kids to make amends for what they did, and they're part of that conversation. That can be very effective. I don't know enough about it. I mean, it's very complicated.
It is, I
Situation, but I think we are gonna end up having to know something about the purpose of the building, if nothing else, so that we can help the people cite it, because one of the, obviously the problems with these buildings is that no one ever wants them. But if we can show that they're safe for the occupants and the staff, that'll help.
I think that with the HOC report people coming in tomorrow and the talk about the new women's facility. That probably we had a pretty good. Again, the reason I want these folks to come in first is just to,
Well, at least that's the stage.
yeah,
Crisis, it's an emergency, I got it.
And we should be able to build buildings faster than in 4 years. And we have buildings that we're getting rid of.
mhm.
So why not find one of those and do something?
I would high five you on that. I have been here, you will find that I don't very much often say things that I just don't mean from my heart. And to have these kids in these situations to where they are, I guess the part that bothers me. Is we all go home at night, right?
Yeah,
We all go home at night. Where do they go?
oh yeah.
Where do they, what's hope for them? Oh, the weekend's here. Oh, okay, we're gonna go have a great time.
Yeah, and you know what? The weekend is worse. Like,
Yeah.
like for people who are incarcerated, there's even less to do, and they actually don't let them go out to learn things. There's things that they get to do during the week that they don't do during the weekend. So weekends are actually worse for incarcerated people, which is just awful. Yeah. And there's so many problems.
Oh, good, well, thank you for being patient on that and. taking
No, I
time with that.
appreciate you bringing them to us.
Yep. So let's go find Brattleboro and see if they're ready. And so what we have with these guys, so we just talk about when they come in. And Bennington, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
you got-
some help. So I don't know if maybe we can do the same thing here, but at least direct them in a way and we'll see what happens.
Okay.